Welcome to the product tour for Sage Intacct for nonprofit organizations. I'm Bob Shago. I work with Sage Intacct Product Marketing, and I'll be your host today as we look inside Sage Intacct to see just what makes it such an ideal financial solution for nonprofit organizations. I'll start today with a brief overview of where Sage Intacct sits in the accounting software industry. Things like who uses Sage Intacct, who partners with Sage Intacct, and what the industry has to say about us. I'll point out some of the key challenges we're solving for nonprofit finance teams so you can see how they align with your needs. Then, before jumping into the demo, I'll point out some of the main value points that we deliver. This is going to help you identify how the things I'll show you in the demo bring value to your organization. In the demo portion, which is most of today's presentation, I'll walk through how Sage Intacct provides nonprofit organizations with real-time visibility, how we increase productivity and reduce costs through configurable workflows and automation, and how Sage Intacct provides the flexibility to adapt to the specific needs of your organization, your processes, and your mission. So let's get started. So why choose Sage Intacct? Well, we're the right partner to help in your mission success. We're the undisputed leader in innovation, recognized as a visionary by industry analysts like Gartner. We're the undisputed leader in customer satisfaction, as evidenced by our #1 rating on G2. Sage Intacct is built by finance experts for finance professionals. Many of our employees are CPAs. We are the first and only preferred provider of the AI CPA. We're the only vendor to have earned this endorsement. And we are the preferred choice of IFAC. Sage Intacct gives organizations time and helps increase money and effort toward their missions by automating not just core accounting like accounts payable and accounts receivable and cash management. It also provides automation across complex order and purchasing workflows. It increases real-time visibility with built-in dashboards and reporting tools that help organizations make better decisions. Advanced functionality automates processes from multi-entity consolidations, to spend management, to budgeting and planning, even to payroll. Specific to nonprofits, we offer grant tracking and billing, nonprofit revenue recognition, and more. Our open APIs mean that you can integrate with other systems to allow data to flow seamlessly and error-free in and out of your financial system. Sage Intacct supports all types of nonprofit organizations. You can see some of the many nonprofits that rely on Sage Intacct to automate their processes and eliminate their business challenges. We've heard stories from scores of clients who now rely on Sage Intacct to make their organization more efficient and help them grow and achieve mission success. We are their partner of choice because we focus on their long-term success, which is why we continue to be #1 in customer satisfaction. Everyone in our company is focused on customer satisfaction, and you'll see a cultural difference between Sage Intacct and other vendors you may be considering. Sage Intacct is an open, best-in-class system designed to easily integrate with other best-in-class solutions. This means that you get to choose the solutions that best fit your organization's needs and connect them to your financial system of record to produce real-time reporting and metrics. In every area of our focus, we are surrounded by the availability of pre-integrated partners. We have over 120 partners, and the vast majority of our customers have integrated multiple systems together with their Sage Intacct financials. Sage Intacct is the financial management system of choice for both accounting and finance experts worldwide. The AICPA completed a thorough due diligence of all major providers of mid-market solutions and concluded with the exclusive endorsement of Sage Intacct as their preferred provider of financial applications. Additionally, IFAC, the Global Association for the Accounting Profession worldwide, selected Sage Intacct to run their own internal operations. So the accounting experts in the US and the world both selected Sage Intacct. Sage Intacct is made up of passionate and extremely talented employees. We've also received virtually every industry award and are a growth leader in the worldwide portfolio of Sage financial products. In a nutshell, we're on the move. We've had over 20 years of delivering great results for customers through the most innovation in the industry with the highest service performance, and we're not stopping. We'd love to provide you with business benefits and add you to the Sage Intacct family. Let's take a brief look into why so many nonprofits want to use, partner with, and endorse Sage Intacct by looking at just what kinds of problems Sage Intacct is solving for nonprofit organizations. Here are some of the ways customers tell us they're solving challenges and adding value to their organization with Sage Intacct. Compliance. Automated reports reduce staff's time in producing compliance reports, such as the IRS 990, FAS 116 and 117, and the AFSB 958. Year-end audits are smooth as everything is gathered into one place with drill-down access to details. Easy auditor access allows auditors to see everything they need to do their job without full accounting permissions. Stewardship. Using our resources efficiently lets us focus more on our mission. Providing financial data creates a higher level of stewardship to members and donors, which will in turn result in higher donations and grants. Real-time access. Board members, staff, and volunteers are spread out in many locations, and they want real-time access to their financials. With Sage Intacct, if you have web access, you're going to be able to access your financial data anytime, anywhere. Visibility. Board members and executives gain greater transparency into how the organization is performing. Real-time data is presented in a simple-to-understand format. Finance teams spend less time explaining performance and more time looking forward on how to build a better organization. Our nonprofit customers tell us that organizations are forever changed with Sage Intacct. Why do they love us? 2 reasons. First, we make their organizations more efficient. By automating processes, improving oversight and controls, and increasing accuracy and compliance, we simply make their organizations run better. This is the everyday, every week, every month stuff. With Sage Intacct, finance professionals keep their nonprofits running more efficiently while letting each part of the organization use the best tools for their part of the job. But that's not enough. Second, we also empower them to drive performance and growth. As financial managers, you're asked to do more than execute on process. You're expected to provide information, valuable information, to run your organization better. Lots of solutions can give you a snapshot dashboard of metrics. Only Sage Intacct lets you dig deeper to understand the true dynamics of your organization. Only Sage Intacct provides visibility into both your financial and your operational data, letting you make better long-term strategic decisions. And we're flexible. Growing nonprofits such as yours are dynamic. As your needs change, so does Sage Intacct. We help you manage your organization for the long term. Efficiency plus growth. With Sage Intacct, you get both. Now that we've looked at what makes Sage Intacct tick and the value we add to nonprofit organizations, let's dive into the system to show you how we do it. We're going to look at 4 main areas: how Sage Intacct delivers real-time visibility, how workflows and automation make your finance team more productive, how you gain the flexibility to match the structure, processes, and mission of your organization, and how you can keep everyone in your organization on the same page by collaborating right inside your financial system. One of the biggest values organizations see with Sage Intacct is increased visibility. Visibility comes from more thorough, auditable compliance reporting or from greater insight into the activity associated with funds and grants. This newfound visibility is especially helpful for multi-entity nonprofits who are now able to see across all their entities in minutes. Only Sage Intacct lets you take one step further to study, probe, and gain deeper understanding of your organization across many dimensions. Our multidimensional data-rich analytics let you drill down to have greater visibility. For example, let's say you want to know more about the dynamics of each fund. The top-line numbers are okay, but there's more to the story. With Sage Intacct, you can see budget, expense, cash flow by location and by fund. We let you slice and dice the data to find underlying trends in your organization and the true drivers you can use to fuel growth. I know this looks like a long list, but I can't help touching on each of these areas that add to the robust visibility you can enjoy with Sage Intacct. In this chapter, we'll look at dashboards, performance cards, both financial and statistical or operational, calculations that combine financial and statistical information, graphical charts and tabular reports, our interactive Visual Explorer, which provides advanced data visualization, activity by funds or grants, compliance reporting with and without restrictions, drill down capabilities, both role-based and function-based dashboards, and filtering by dimensions like location or date, fund or grant. This is my dashboard, a great place to start your day inside Sage Intacct. I'm going to walk through some of the aspects of the dashboard you're looking at, then we'll move to other dashboards. We'll look at the menu of dashboards and wrap up with how this relates to reporting. One thing I want to point out right off is that this dashboard is not a snapshot from previously exported data. Unlike other dashboards or visualization tools where they're exporting data to build out a dashboard and you're looking at metrics from yesterday or last week, this dashboard shows live up-to-the-minute data. If we were to have changes such as added expenses, they would be reflected here in the metrics we're looking at. These items across the top are performance cards. They're kind of a scorecard, lets you see right up front what's going on with your organization. For instance, this one looks at a group of accounts around expenses. It takes a summary total of all those accounts for a specified period. It also shows a comparison. In this case, we're comparing to the prior year. We could be comparing to a prior month or prior quarter. It all depends on how you set it up and what you want it to do. You control the account groups that feed these metrics and the display preferences, such as period or whether to compare to a previous period or to a budget. This performance card is pointing out what we call a statistical account or operational information. We're looking at captured information about meals served. We capture information into statistical accounts through statistical journal entries as we keep track of different programs and different things going on. We can capture these metrics and display them right here on a dashboard. Now we have a real view of what's going on in the organization beyond just the dollars and cents. Volunteer hours is another statistical account. Hours are being entered and displayed here. This performance card displays a calculated metric, expense per meal. We've taken statistical information, meals, and expenses associated with providing those meals to get to a trackable metric of a per meal expense. Of course, this is just a sample company, but you get the idea. This is a comparison versus prior year, but you could look at outcomes from a lot of different periods, like prior month or quarter or even a budget. Below the performance cards, I've got a variety of components creating visibility into the organization. I can deliver tabular reports that put the numbers right in front of me, while also providing visualizations to help interpret results. Notice that I broke out revenue by programs. This is an example of dimensional reporting. In this organization, programs are set in the department dimension. Every transaction can be tagged with its program or department, then broken out in reports. You can see here the last column in a calculation showing the revenue as a variance percentage to quickly see trends. Data-driven color overlays help quickly visualize how things are going. If I want to deep dive into the data for this report, I click the magnifying glass to display it in its own window. In this expanded view, I can expand sections to see more details. I can also click on any blue values to drill down to the transactions behind the data. Going back to the main dashboard, I have charts that provide a quick way to visualize data. If I want to look at the data behind these charts, as I roll over the chart area, I see a Show Data button. Clicking shows me the data behind the chart. Rolling over it again, I get the button to return to the chart. I can see even more detail by clicking the chart to show the breakout of the data behind the chart in its own window. I can look at and edit the definition of the chart right from here. I can also make changes to the component, such as changing the type of chart or how the chart is displayed. I can choose everything from columns to donut charts, depending on the type of data I'm working with. I also have a component from our analytics tool, Interactive Visual Explorer, with predictive capabilities. With access to live data and a wide variety of visualization formats, it helps people tell their data stories in ways that are easy to understand. With Visual Explorer, you can analyze a trend or spot an opportunity while you still have time to do something about it. And here we have aggregate revenue and expenditures by site. In this organization, I have these different sites, and I'm able to see revenue and expenditures across these sites, just like I did for department and programs above. The difference here is that site is a custom or user-defined dimension. In addition to the standard dimensions, Sage Intacct lets you add as many custom dimensions as you need. I'll talk more about that and how that helps nonprofits as we look at dimensional reporting. We can also move to another dashboard to look at grant comparisons, where grant is a dimension. I have the statement of revenue expenditures where I compare different grants. As I look at what's going on with the different grants, I'll go ahead and expand this because I notice that it flows quite a bit to the right. Now I can see the whole thing. You can see I'm breaking out my revenue, grants, and entities. Going back to the dashboard, I also have comparison reports for projects and funds. I could just as easily analyze by programs and locations, whatever I define within the organization that I want to see things broken out by. Another great thing we can do in dashboards is to create compliance reporting. Let me jump over to another dashboard. On the way, let me show you the dashboards menu. This menu shows all the different dashboards by my different focus areas. This sample organization has a variety of different nonprofit examples within it. These outcomes are based on different focus areas. You can build different dashboards for different outcome areas. You have an unlimited number of dashboards available, and you can limit the access to those according to the roles or even the individuals within those roles. Here I have one set up as a compliance audit dashboard. I want to point this out quickly. I could give auditors permission to access just this dashboard. The auditors can see the dashboard but not have access to the whole company. They can look at this and drill down to just the things they need to see. Also in this dashboard, you notice I've got my statement of activities. We've also been able to handle new regulations for nonprofits, reporting according to restricted funds and unrestricted funds. Dual report shows the differences in how we're reporting it across the new reporting requirements. I also have financial position reports here so they can look at how everything is assigned. If I see any anomalies here, I can drill down into those and see what's happening in the different accounts. We can create permissions around any dashboard. I simply bring up the dashboard properties and from here create both filters and permissions. From filters, I choose as of date or department or grant, any of these dimensions. I can also set permissions. In this case, we have an owner. These permissions basically say that we've denied everyone and given access to these individuals. These individuals are allowed to see and work with this dashboard. One of these could be our auditor. And this way we can give insight into the system by giving the auditor permission to that dashboard. We can grant them permissions to see things around the general ledger, but not the ability to do any accounting. I'm going to go over to another dashboard on outcomes as we look at our sample nonprofit outcomes. I can set filters at the top of my dashboard in my dashboard configuration. I can add up to 3-dimension filter drop-downs to the dashboard in addition to the date filter. This allows me to quickly filter the dashboard and look at just one dimension of my organization to compare and contrast. Changing the date to the last day of the previous year, I can apply this filter and see how my organization looks from that year. I'm seeing a few different flags on my performance cards. I could go into any of these filter drop-down menus and filter by any or all of them. You can also create dashboards that work as part of a process. I go to my dashboard menu, to the analysis group, and look at my budget position. In this case, I'm not bringing in performance card metrics or reports with just actuals, but I'm looking at budgets. I'm still breaking out by dimensions with my actual versus budget under my different program areas. I also see conditional highlights going on. I can see areas that might be having trouble or that I might want to dive into and see what's going on. For quick visualization, I have a chart of expenditure budgets to actuals broken out by month across the past year. I can also look at expenditures budget to actual in a different format here. Here, the line graph gives more of a trend effect as the budget and actual drift apart from each other. Different options allow me to build and change depending on the data I'm looking at, using my dimensional filters at the top. I can go ahead and say, I want to look at this according to the outreach campaign grant. I can just select that particular grant and filter my expenditure budget to actual charts. I've limited these charts in the entire dashboard to just that grant. I've only just touched the surface of what you can do with dashboards. One thing here that I haven't touched on is how quickly you can work with reports from the dashboard. I can go in and edit a report on the fly. Clicking the Edit Report icon, the pencil takes me to the Financial Report Writer. From my Financial Report Writer, I can make edits to what's showing up, whether things are expanded or collapsed, how much detail I want to show, and so on. I can even add more columns. When I save these, they show up live back on the dashboard. I can also come here and decide, I really like the way this report is running and working, but I want another report that's slightly different. I can duplicate the report and start working on the duplicate version of this report. Give it a new name, and then pull it into the dashboard, or just run the report from the report center. Any of my reports can be pulled into a dashboard or run from the report center. Let me quickly jump over to the report center to show you that area. This is where Sage Intacct keeps all reports. I've got this set to all reports for all applications right now. I can change this to narrow the list of reports. Notice the little star next to some reports. This means these are my favorites. After I save a report, I can also memorize the report to run and be delivered with certain parameters preset. I can also set a schedule for the report to run and be sent by email to different stakeholders and managers. I can do this with any of my reports and keep all my stakeholders apprised of how things are going within the organization. We looked at performance metrics that combine financial and operational information, charts and reports showing activity by dimensions, compliance reporting with the ability to drill down to the details. We saw dashboards for daily use in different roles and how we can slice and dice by dimensions like fund and grant. Time savings has been the promise of software since the first program was loaded on the first computer. Sage Intacct hasn't forgotten that promise. Our user experience designers work with actual software users to meticulously detail their real-world workflows. We then streamline those processes by eliminating redundant steps in workflows and automating mundane tasks. We've made big gains for finance in procure-to-pay processes, as well as tracking funds and grants. At some point, you need to answer the question of return on investment. Nonprofits running on Sage Intacct calculate ROI across automated processes, the ability to lead and manage change, as well as current financial resources, and their ability to produce and deliver timely reports to auditors and stakeholders. They've come up with some figures that we've been able to average across our customer base. Our typical customer can see more than $150,000 in value annually. This more than offsets the cost of the solution. We generally see an implementation and subscription payback in less than 6 months. And on average, our customers are seeing a 250% return on investment. Your results will be more or less depending on the size of your organization and the depth to which you use the system within your organization. As we dive into areas of workflow automation, we'll look at procure-to-pay, including header automation that saves you clicks, easy document attachment, keeping you audit ready, and additional fields that can be expanded or hidden as needed. We'll look at how quick access to transaction history helps you manage payment workflows and interact with vendors. I'll show you how tracking funds and grants starts at the transaction level. We'll also look at how you can take control of approvals, simplifying your payment process. And finally, we'll look at how we take the busy work out of processing payments. Purchasing is where we handle expenditures that then flow into accounts payable. On the main purchasing overview, we can see that purchasing has some data elements such as vendors. If you have products and product lines that you purchase, you deal with those here. The main thing we're dealing with here is our purchase and acquisition workflow. Notice that arrows guide us through the workflow. This doesn't mean we always have to start at the beginning, but it shows us how different transactions work together. A vendor invoice is the transaction that posts to the general ledger. Let's start this off by creating a purchase requisition. I have a couple of options. When I roll over purchase requisition, I can create a vendor invoice approval, corporate card approval, or purchase requisition. These are custom setup purchasing transactions you can define. It's all configurable, and it isn't something you need to call IT to set up for you. You configure these using transaction definition menu options, like how things get accounted for and what items get listed at each stage of the workflow. This is the creation menu for a purchasing transaction. In this case, a purchasing requisition. From a list of vendors, I'll go ahead and choose a vendor. I automatically get the contacts for pay to and return to. You can set up every vendor to have a default pay to and return to. You can also create additional contacts and manually change to those if needed. Notice this section at the top of the menu isn't filled in with anything yet because we haven't added anything. When we look at some existing purchase transactions, we'll see that we get header information telling us the status. We'll look at this in just a minute. In the details or line items section, we can go ahead and select items to purchase. I just select the item and set the quantity. I'll create a second line item the same way. Notice that pricing is already set for items that I purchase on a regular basis. If no pricing were set for the item, I could set the pricing here. I can also override the default price. Notice when I slide open the window shade on the line item, I see more details. This area is completely editable. I can take fields from here and put them in the main menu bar, or move main menu fields down to here. The administrator changes the line item setup and saves it for the entire organization. It's designed to let you match your workflow. After all, we're Sage. We're all about improving the flow of business. On this detail panel, I can set different dimensions that will tag this transaction for reports, sorting, and filtering. I'll set the site here. Then I'll set the grant up here. Later, I'm able to use these settings to keep track of expenditures against grants and sites, and even restrictions if I choose. I can set these details independently for each line item. I can even set the second one to a different grant or site. If I had the price quote for the vendor for these items, I could go ahead and add it as proof of the pricing for this order. I'll go ahead and submit the requisition. Now, once I've submitted a purchase requisition, I can go look at all my transactions. I just click on Purchase Requisitions, and I get the list of them. At the top is the one I just put in. It says it's submitted. Once it's approved, I can go ahead and convert it. Here's one that's already been approved. I'm going to go ahead and convert this from a purchase requisition to a purchase order. The purchase order creation screen comes up with all the information filled in from the requisition. I see the total amount due and other information at the top. I can see what it's for and where it's going and so on. At this point, I could make changes if I wanted to. I could put in another reference number or maybe add a message. I'll go ahead and post this as a purchase order. After posting the purchase order, I'm brought back to this list where I can see that it's a pending purchase order. If I convert it again, I can create a vendor invoice. Let's post the vendor invoice. Now the system tells me that it requires a vendor document. I know that a validation rule has been set up requiring a vendor document on vendor invoices. I'll go ahead and put a vendor document number in there. It looks like everything else is filled in properly. I'll go ahead and post the vendor invoice. At this point, the system creates a bill in accounts payable, and the transaction posts to the general ledger without retyping anything. I've moved from a requisition to a purchase order to a vendor invoice waiting to be paid. This brings us to another area of automation that we see when we go and look at some of the existing vendor invoices that are closed. As I review one of these older vendor invoices, I can see information about the vendor invoice, item totals, transaction total, transaction status, which is closed. I can look at a history and see that this was created as a requisition by K. Grace on this date and time, and that the vendor invoice was also created by K. Grace on this date and time. I see in payment details that there was a payment made by check on this date. I could click through to any of this information to immediately find out details about an invoice. For example, if the vendor calls me and says, "Hey, I'm calling about an old bill," I can quickly pull up the information using their number. Remember that one that was required? I have the full history right in front of me to answer questions. I can see everything that's gone on with this bill, saving me the time of digging through files or old records. Remember I showed you the first requisition that was waiting for approval? That's another area where Sage Intacct can save you time. If we go back to the dashboards, I can go to the role-based dashboard for my CFO. I've added a component here for purchasing transactions waiting for approval. This list of items waiting for approval is different based on the logged in user. Managers see the things that they need to approve. I would also receive an email about pending approvals, and I can access approvals in a mobile-friendly interface like a phone or a tablet. Often in a nonprofit, you have people out in the field working on programs and fundraising, and they're also the people who need to approve things. No more playing find the manager when it's time for approvals. Sage Intacct also offers payment automation. I don't have this connected live because it's a demo organization, and connections to our payment services must be live to run. We offer payments through our vendor payment services module. Checks are no longer cut and mailed from your office. You can simply send the information out, and they mail checks and send them through as you direct them. Payments go out for your existing bank accounts. Using the payment option through vendor payment services eliminates setting up those NAACHA files for each of your vendors, and probably the most appealing payment option is the ability to pay bills with a credit card without having to give the vendor your actual card number. Sage Intacct has a relationship with CSI, where we've built a card payment process right inside the system. When you pay with a card, the vendor gets a one-time use number they can use to get paid. You've got the security of keeping your card number private while getting the benefits of the float time and card points. Some organizations have monetized their accounts payable system through this automation, where they're getting enough back from their points and benefits from the card that it's actually paying for their accounting system. To recap, we looked at the deep automation available through the procure-to-pay process. We looked at how history provides visibility into the whole process. We saw how individual transactions are tied to funds and grants. We looked at how you build flexible approval automation into your financials. And last but not least, we saw how Sage Intacct reduced hours of busy work down to just a few clicks to help you get payments out the door. What if you need to do business differently? What if your organization must find multiple new ways of working to accomplish your mission? For example, maybe you have multiple foundations you need to manage. Maybe you need to set up receivable rules to work in a way different than what you've seen in other software solutions. What if you just need to get up and running fast? As a multi-tenant cloud system with all clients running on the same code base, Sage Intacct designers had to build in flexibility from the start. Unlike other financial software, with Sage Intacct you can self-provision new entities to meet the needs of your growing organization. These entities become part of your consolidated financials. You control who has permissions to these entities and can even build out dashboards, reporting, and workflows specific to those entities. I'm going to briefly show you how we navigate across multiple entities, including the top-level roll-up entity, consolidate shared entities with a shared chart of accounts, and how we consolidate global entities or entities with different charts of accounts. We'll look at some of the configurability in Sage Intacct that puts finance professionals in control without having to engage IT for help. We'll look at how granular permissions protect everything from transaction entry to reporting. And then I'll show you how duplicating standard elements gives you a head start to get tasks running. We'll start back on a dashboard. The first area of flexibility deals with managing multiple entities under one login. Currently, I'm on the top level as noted in the header. From here, I see consolidated metrics from across the whole organization. But what if I just wanted to work on a single entity? From the header, where it says top level, I can click to see a list of all the entities. You'll see that multiple entities underneath this top level roll up to this top level. When I select one of these other entities, the system opens a new tab for me. I slide into this entity and start working just in a single entity. Here we still have the same dashboard, but I can look at a different dashboard to get a look of some metrics regarding just this entity. I can look at the CFO dashboard, for instance, for just this entity. I notice I have less information because this entity doesn't deal with all the aspects of the organization. I can choose to create a dashboard that focuses on the mission of this particular entity. Because I'm a top level or a super user, I can continue to go into any of the other entities and perform accounting tasks there. If you're working across entities daily, you might have a tab open for each of your entities. Going back to this top level, you'll notice it didn't close. I want to discuss a couple of different ways we roll up or consolidate the multiple entities. One way, a very simple way, is to have all these entities share a chart of accounts, where you manage the chart of accounts from the top level. With this method, we get continuous consolidation. The system can roll up in real time. Certain GL metrics still rely on a period close, but you're seeing transactional impacts as they happen. The other way to consolidate entities we call global consolidations. I'll jump briefly over to an organization with global consolidations. Here, the entities, for whatever reason, require different charts of accounts. Maybe you're running across borders, or you have strict chart of account regulations to meet. In this organization, I can consolidate entities by going to global consolidations, and with a few clicks, I run the consolidation. So it's just a matter of whether the consolidation is happening automatically with a single chart of accounts, or whether you're going to tell it to run the consolidations in a more global organization. When working in an organization with multiple entities, I can set up users to only log into one or more entities. Let's face it, not everyone who does work in the system needs to see across the entire organization. I might just allow a user to log into this entity and not into any other entities. They would do accounting just within this part of the organization. This ability is configurable inside the user record, where we can set which entities the user can log into. It's really just this simple. This leads us into the topic of permissions. Permissions in Sage Intacct are granular, so you have flexibility. Just like every user doesn't need access to every entity, they also don't need access to every part of the financial system. In fact, as you limit permissions, you streamline workflows by reducing unneeded menu items for that user. We assign permissions to roles, which we in turn assign to users. This allows us to create a role and assign it to multiple people. We can then update everyone with a certain role at the same time. As the administrator, I can go to my list of roles and set permissions for them. Let's look at what access a role has by clicking Subscriptions. I can see that this role has access to time and expenses and general ledger. Clicking permission in time and expenses shows me details. I'll expand this screen to show more. I can see that people with this role have access to their own expenses, but not to the expense summaries for others. They can list and view expense summaries, but are not able to do anything with them. They're not able to create, edit, delete, reverse, or class expense summaries. They're not part of the expense approval process. Maybe we want to give them some additional information or more to work with. With just a few clicks, we can open other things. We can also make sure they can run needed reports. Using roles makes growing an organization quick and easy. You can even duplicate roles and adjust them for speed and flexibility. Speaking of duplicating items, to get started faster, let's look at some areas where you can duplicate reports to build a variation of the original. This is in the Report Center. I can open a financial report in the Financial Report Writer and simply duplicate it. After I give it a name, I can open the new file and make changes, knowing that I have an untouched version stored in the system. Similarly, I can go to any dashboard and clone it. This is handy when creating a number of role-based dashboards with similar components. You can also duplicate and edit records like customers or vendors or transactions like bills and invoices. Sage Intacct is stuffed full of ways to help you reduce clicks while adapting the system to your way of working. In this section, we navigated across multiple entities with ease, consolidated entities with a shared chart of accounts, and ran global consolidations, explored finance-controlled, configurable, not scripted setup, looked at the granularity and flexibility of user permissions, and saw how to get started quickly by duplicating standard elements. Nothing keeps a team in sync like having your message streams built right into a tool you're all using. And what is even better is when that message stream attaches messages right to the records they relate to. Whether you're having a back and forth conversation about an unusual journal entry or capturing a top-level discussion during a board meeting, Sage Intacct Collaborate helps you capture the why behind your decisions. You'll never have to rely on recollection or speculation again. In this chapter, our product tour for nonprofits, we'll look at the Collaboration Center where you manage and review all your feeds. Collaboration on a dashboard where you capture and review discussions and decisions. Collaboration in a transaction where you capture discussions relevant to the transaction for future reference. Collaboration on a record like vendor, and the links the system builds for your feed to related records. Starting on my dashboard screen, I want to point out a little icon in the upper corner of the main header. Clicking the icon shows the collaboration feed. From here, I can navigate to my main Collaboration Center. The Collaboration Center is where I can see all my feed history and where I can follow other users. Or I can create groups, public or private. For instance, I might want to create a private group to collaborate while working on an audit. I can also place a collaboration feed on a dashboard. When using the dashboard live in a menu, the collaboration feed can be used to store information about decisions. You can even take a snapshot of a chart or report and store it with the feed as a record of what your component looked like when the decision was made. One of the most powerful uses of Collaborate is tying a conversation to a record such as a transaction. For instance, you might want to look at bills and look at a higher than normal bill. I might have a question about this bill. Right on the transaction screen, I can ask the question, why is this bill higher than normal? I can tag another user in the organization so that they get a notification about my question. The notification will include a link to this journal entry. Perhaps the person I tagged can come here and comment with, "This was the month we hosted our training." That question and any answer that comes back are permanently stored with this journal entry. Later, if the CFO has a question about it, we can look at this and understand the reason for the higher amount. In addition to these internal conversations, Sage Intacct Collaborate is tied to Chatter in Salesforce. So in organizations that use the integration between Sage Intacct and Salesforce, collaboration and Chatter conversations go back and forth. Anything that's entered in Chatter will become reflected in conversations in Collaborate, and anything entered in Collaborate shows up in Chatter. Those gathering revenue or working with grant providers or stakeholders outside the office enjoy real-time stored communication back and forth with the people in finance. This is just a little bit about how we keep the whole company on the same page through collaborating and storing messages within the organization. To review, we saw how you can look at your whole feed in the Collaboration Center, how collaboration can be used on a dashboard, how you can capture more information about transactions and records with collaboration, and how related records are easy to find from your main feed. I wanted to mention that you can build community and relationships with like-minded organizational leaders through Sage Membership, a complete package that combines proven financial solutions with practical human advice and expertise.